And now to the business of the day, and I invite Peter Berg to come up as chair of the day to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, John. Hi, everyone. Look, it's my pleasure to present today's guest speaker, Mark Allan. Mark is the Enterprise Fellow Urban Analytics at the University of Melbourne Centre for Spatial Data Infrastructure and Land Administration, the CSDILA, located at Melbourne Connect, which was the old Royal Women's Hospital building. His topic today is Intelligent Future Cities, Designing for Resilient and Sustainable Communities. Mark is a fellow of both the Australian Institute of Architects and the Planning Institute of Australia. He holds honours degrees in architecture and planning and a master's degree in business from the Melbourne Business School. Mark leads the CSDILA Urban Analytics team, and as a former director at the City of Melbourne, he is an accomplished urban planning and design professional and a recognised leader in the field of urban design and master planning. Mark has a legacy of projects of international significance, including Federation Square, Melbourne Docklands, Queen Victoria Market and the Green Line project. He has received numerous awards, including 2 prestigious Australian Urban Design Awards, and in 2024, the Master Plan for the Green Line project was awarded Best Master Plan at the World Architecture Festival held in Singapore. Mark's research interests include digital twins, people-centric urban regeneration, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I now invite Mark to come on up, and I'll pass over to you, Mark, and we're very much forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Well, Peter, thank you very much for that kind invitation. Wonderful, thank you. And good afternoon to everyone. Let me to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we now call Melbourne, the Wurundjeri and the Boonwurrung people of the Eastern Kulin, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So good afternoon, members, guests and office holders of Melbourne Rotary, Australia's first and largest Rotary Club. I acknowledge the Honorary Secretary John Saunders and the President-elect Philip Cornish, and thank Peter Berg and Stephen Rando for the invitation to be with you this afternoon. It is always a privilege to engage with member organisations who hold values around economic, social and environmental sustainability. Indeed, a sustainable future for all, one in which no one is left behind, is important. Okay, so this afternoon I'll touch on 3 principal topics. One around the urban challenges that face all of us, outline the Sustainable Development Goals, and then focus on 4 of the key targets that sit within SDG 11, and then close a little on some of the research that we're doing at the University of Melbourne around urban digital twins. So we live at a time where there is rapid urbanisation occurring, transforming the planet. We've moved from an urban population of 10% in 1990 to over 55% today of people living in cities, and that is forecast to increase to 60% by 2050. Increased mobility combined with demographic changes exist in the context of rising resource depletion, climate change, weather extremes, and impacts from natural and human disasters, which are impacting us on regional and global scales. As a global community, never before have we required the skills of engineers, urban practitioners, working with decision makers and communities to address some of these significant challenges. I've spent a long time in my career working in government and in practice, research on planning for sustainable urban environments. I love cities, and I recognise that cities are highly variable. They constantly evolve. They comprise a vast array of socio-economic and physical factors, and they are dynamic. Most of us live in cities now. They are complex and they are messy. There are multiple interconnected layers, people, household, services, land, agriculture, workplaces, transportation. I could go on, but what is also important is that technology provides an opportunity for our cities to become more sustainable. What we also need to recognise is that while half of us live in city and half of us are connected to the internet, that means that are not. So those changes around bridging that digital divide and ensuring that that all of us can recognise and realise the benefits of technology will be important. Cities are the world's economic superpowers. They generate approximately 80% of global gross domestic products, and they're also the planet's safety valve. They offer opportunity and the promise of a sustainable future for all. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are a framework of 17 interconnected goals which comprise the Agenda for Sustainable Development, outlining a global pathway to a sustainable future by 2030. Although it's now widely recognised that the SDGs will not be realised in every location by 2030, the agreement that was reached by UN member nations remains significant. The SDG that I am most involved with is SDG 11, which is the so-called city goal. So it looks to make cities and human settlements more inclusive, resilient and sustainable. There are 10 targets that sit within SDG 11, and what I'd like to do is look at 4 of those in the context of Melbourne. So the first is around safe and affordable housing. Australia is experiencing housing affordability crisis. Melbourne is one of the nation's least affordable cities. Median house price in Melbourne, according to the ABS, is $900,000. According to the Age newspaper today, is $1 million for the median house price in our city. And the gap between that house price and median incomes is growing, and that's of major concern. One of the important aspects that the city looked to do in terms of advancing the Sustainable Development Goals is to localise them. So nations are encouraged to complete what is known as a voluntary local review, which is to sort of say, how can we make these targets bespoke to our city? So Melbourne, as a world city, will have different challenges than those cities that exist in the developing world. So here is the localised target for Melbourne City around safe and affordable housing. The image is of the Munro development, which was a public-private partnership completed in 2022 between the City of Melbourne and PDG Corporation. So I like to think of it as the most sustainable mixed-use project in the city. 10% of the housing on that site is affordable. So 49 affordable housing units, a 500-space basement car park, which in fact frees up land which is currently used for at-grade car parking at the Queen Victoria Market, which will become a major green space into the future. 490 build-to-rent residences, a boutique hotel, ground floor retail, and the City of Melbourne's largest community hub that services the densest, or one of the densest parts of the city, and a new library, Nga Gagum. So another of the SDG targets critical for cities relates to efficient transport. And SDG target 11.2 addresses how those transport options can be sustainable. I'm going to share some observations from a colleague of mine at the University of Melbourne, Professor Nima Nassar, but car dependency is a major cause of traffic accidents. Australia's sprawling car-reliant suburbs now show higher per capita road fatalities compared to compact inner areas. Car dependence leads to a cycle of decline. So more people choose the car, more cars create more traffic, more cars lead to more traffic jams and a shortage of car parking spaces, and require more investments in roads and parking, and it becomes an unpleasant place to live in and visit. There are cities in the United States that have experienced downtowns being hollowed out by transport infrastructure and overpasses and parking garages, and they're now in the process of reinvigorating those downtown centres, trying to repair some of the impacts that's occurred. So a good transport system, and I drive a car, but a good transport system is one that offers choice with accessibility, efficiency, and sustainability. We live in a city that has prioritised walkability and pedestrians above private motor vehicles. A core aspect of the City of Melbourne sustainable urban mobility policies are directed at the activity that occurs in the streets. Pre-COVID, over 1 million people travel to the CBD of Melbourne each and every day. That number is returning, and that target that looks to 70% of those trips to the CBD being by public transport or active transport, cycling and walking and so forth, is important. That urban design philosophy that really promotes pedestrian-friendly environments and accessible neighbourhoods and layouts is evident for all of us to see. Expansion of pedestrian and bicycle networks supports a reduced reliance on private motor cars and encourages active mobility. In addition, we're seeing major metropolitan-wide projects, including the level crossing removal project, which is increasing rail corridor capacity and improving transport efficiency. So the city has developed a range of local indicators that look to monitor in quite some detail the proportion of trips by bicycle, public transport, walking and motor cars. When we look to SDG 11.3, inclusive and sustainable urbanisation, that really looks to address the use of natural resources innovatively and efficiently to increase city productivity and to reduce the negative environmental impacts. So Melbourne has an established reputation as a multicultural, diverse and cosmopolitan inner core. It is also a sprawling city of over 100 kilometres from end to end. As a nation, we also have the largest houses in the world. This presents challenges for both energy use and the use of rivers. A couple of strategies to address inclusive and sustainable urbanisation are around medium density housing. So much of the city's recent accommodation has been through medium and sensible density infill housing dispersed across the city. In the decade 2010 to 2020, over 1 million people were added to metropolitan Melbourne. That is a big number. And the estimates, or at least the estimate resident population for 2023-24 will grow by 142,000. That's approximately 2,700 people per week to be accommodated in our city. That's a big number, and that requires sustainable planning for those new homes as we look to manage that growth into the future. A couple of the strategies that are in play to address that rapid growth include polycentric city planning. So that essentially says, yes, we have a very important downtown core of the CBD, but the strategy is to see whether those opportunities can be spread across Melbourne as a series of activity centres. And for those activity centres, it's about looking to build sensibly around existing infrastructure to incorporate a larger public transport system that more people can access, and to add more green space and a genuine mix of uses within those centres. In addition to CBD, that polycentric city clusters development around these transport nodes and improves access to jobs and services. That program is currently out for consultation on expansion, and that's an important conversation because we are all impacted by change in our city, and it's very important that that there is strong and considered feedback as that notion of decentralisation is progressed. but the ability for shorter, faster, safer commutes with traffic being more evenly distributed around the metropolis rather than commuters always converging on the city centre is important. Shorter travel times result in less carbon emissions, and more active and public transport in activity centres reduces noise, air pollution, and builds our health and well-being. Another concept is that of the 20-minute neighbourhood. So aligned with the polycentric city is that initiative which looks to locate 6 essential functions close to where we live. So working, shops and services, education, green space, mobility and living within a 20-minute journey of our home. The approach seeks to improve economic outcomes through increased local business footfall, benefit society by strengthening community connection, and aids health and wellbeing, promoting active transport options and improving the environment and air quality. A project that's very close to my heart, and I know one that the Rotary Club of Melbourne are interested in, is the Green Line project. So SDG 11.7 looks to increase access to public space for all people, but in particular women and children, older persons and persons with disabilities. And it's important that that space is safe, inclusive, and that accessibility is realised in a series of projects. The provision of green space enriches the health and the quality of life of people living in cities, and improving our physical and physiological health, strengthening our communities, and making our cities more attractive to live and work. More green space can also address the heat island effect. So the more greenery we have, we can see some of the temperature increases managed, and importantly, make our cities more livable. This is an image from the Green Line Master Plan. So this is the turning basin, or at least it's an image of what the turning basin would look like after Green Line. But for those that are not aware, Green Line is a major partnership project. So $300 million to transform a series of underutilised and public spaces in need of revitalisation along the Yarra River, from Birramungma, at least very close east of Federation Square, right through to Balti Bridge. Construction of the project has commenced with the first stage in Birramungma, but there are governance and very clearly funding challenges for major capital works in our city. Importantly, for the Green Line project, a business case was produced in 2022, which identified the social, environmental and economic benefits that come from investment in community and public realm infrastructure. And for the Green Line project, that cost-benefit ratio is 3.29 to 1. So for every dollar invested in that community infrastructure, you would expect a threefold return on value. What this image is showing is the ability to restore some of the original habitat. So the turning basin happens to be the natural widening point of the Yarra River, close to what we now know as Queen's Bridge, but a very important location for First Nations people. The design seeks to introduce biodiversity and create a more natural river's edge that people can connect directly with the river, introducing a wetland habitat, boardwalks, and providing an opportunity for education, which I know is a principal interest of Melbourne Rotary, and importantly, allowing us to better understand Indigenous landscape and the stories of Melbourne's maritime past. Just quickly touch on a little of the research that we're doing at the Centre for Spatial Data Infrastructure and Land Administration. So we're very interested in digital twin. So digital twins are a dynamic representation or a replica or a twinning of a real world object. In Singapore, they're a leader in this space. They deliver a range of municipal services online. They have a twin, so a computer twin of the island state of Singapore. And in the space that I'm very interested in, they use that in a number of ways, but including the management and upkeep of open space, of living environments, working with partners and community to promote cleanliness and to maintain greenery and the local infrastructure that's necessary, the roads and the footpaths. The concept developed in aerospace. So essentially what you need for a digital twin is a real world entity. So in this case, you need a real aeroplane. Then what you do is you develop a very sophisticated virtual model of that physical entity and connect the two through data. Okay? That enables designers and aviators to better understand some of the possibilities that exist in design and manufacturing around operations and scenarios which can be tested in a virtual world before being applied in the real world. When we look at cities, it becomes a little more difficult. Perhaps an example that I like to use of a spatial digital twin are Google Maps. So essentially, you have the real world street system. You then build a dynamic virtual model of that street system, and you connect it with near to real-time spatial data. It's captured through a series of remote and local sensors. And then this is a really sophisticated technology that I think we all now take for granted as we move around both our home cities and new cities as we visit them. Taking that to the next step in terms of looking at urban digital twins will be a transformation in the way we think about city planning and design. It will enable us to solve complexity and uncertainty that exists in city design, manage construction, service delivery, and importantly allow us to simulate, monitor and diagnose the physical environment through virtual models. Now that establishes this simultaneous interaction between the physical and the digital dimensions of the city. I'm not saying this is easy, it's incredibly complicated, but the notion that we can get near to real near-time data presents a whole range of benefits. So a lot of research happening in this space, a lot of industry looking to it as well. So my penultimate slide, I would say that urban planning benefits greatly from the potential of digital twins. We can manage vast amounts of increasingly large data sets. We can facilitate urban analytics, which will lead to improved decision making. We can enhance our situational awareness. So think of Google Maps. We can visualize futures that will foster collaboration and engagement. But this needs to be done in ways that achieve effective and ethical outcomes. So just as the President-elect made clear some of the perhaps cautions and challenges of AI into the future, it's very important that we have open and transparent, trusted data sources, that we genuinely collaborate across disciplines, so urban planners and futurists working with technology specialists, that we do in fact have a governance process that provides an ethical and inclusive community engagement that respects privacy and continually builds trust. And then most importantly, that we have a human-centric approach to the way we use technologies in our cities, putting people at the centre of those technological advances. So with that, I thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. Dorothy, not Dorothy, Rosemary, you're the MC for today. So Mark has kindly offered to take some questions, and if you stand up and announce your name and ask the question.
David Carruthers. Thank you for your address, and harking back to your comments earlier in the piece, that there's a rapid increase in the centralisation of people into the cities. One of the things we were told when COVID was here, there was a heavy drain of people going from the cities out to the rural areas because of the ability to not have to go into the office. Has your view changed on that, or what's happening?
Listen, it's a really good question, David, and I thank you for it. Clearly, the way we think about city and urban planning now is pre-COVID and post-COVID. One of the real opportunities that's been presented to our communities is the ability to work from home. And for many industries, that's reliant on technology. I don't have the numbers at hand in terms of those people that undertook to move to regional centres as a consequence of the COVID pandemic. But we do know that Australia is the most urbanised nation in the world. That you know, we live in cities. That typically is part of our DNA. The ability to look at regional and rural areas, I think, is really important. And I think we are seeing people. In fact, we're adding to the urban analytics team at the centre, and one of the employees I know lives in Bendigo, so she'll choose to travel up to the city at times of the week, and at other times will locate remotely. My understanding, and it's anecdotal, is that the numbers are not vast. So our cities are continuing to get bigger, and although we are seeing some movement to regional and rural Australia, I'd have to get back to you on the actual number, but it's an important space.
Bruce Libert, thank you for your presentation. A question about the 20-minute proximity model. I take it that is 20 minutes walking, not 20 minutes driving, but what are the main challenges there in bringing that into effect, and where has it been applied?
Thanks for the question, Bruce. You're right, there are a number of challenges in terms of the way we move around cities. I mean, thinking of the city pre-COVID as well, is that, I don't know about your household, but I became very familiar with my local community. And so the ability for us to access services, I think, became front of mind. The 15-minute city concept, you often hear it talked about internationally in those terms, strategies that really look to try and optimise the services and the infrastructure that exists. So it's a sustainable approach to building resilience. I don't think there's ever going to be a metric that says, yes, if you live in this particular suburb, you suddenly have a tick. You've got all of the services that you need within proximity of your home. But conceptually, it's very important that notion that we have to cross town for those 6 fundamental sort of functions that we need to do, I think needs to be challenged. One of the realities is that we have a marvellous CBD and a downtown, and within that we have ability to stage events and sporting contests and have a range of activities and facilities that will really remain preeminent in the CBD. So there will be that connection to those major national infrastructure activities. But I think the ability for us to actually connect closer to our homes is an important principle. One of the other sort of realities that leads to your question as well, David, is in the post-COVID world, we're seeing some of the dynamic sort of fundamentals of the way our city works change. So we're getting back closer to that million people travelling to the CBD each and every day, but we're actually seeing some change in the time that they're doing that. So some of the retailers are reporting that their trading hours are going longer. So that notion of a nighttime economy is beginning to see some changes as our city constantly evolves, and it will always be about change. But I think the 20-minute neighbourhood is an important principle, but I'm not going to stand here and say you'll be able to go and say there's one, there's one, there's one.
Peter Rogers, thanks, Mark, for your presentation. I'm interested in the planning process that we're seeing in Melbourne. We live in a city, and we're faced with a big development nearby. Because it's over $70 million project, it becomes the bailiwick of the state planning minister, and there's no right of appeal. Now, you used the terms ethical and inclusive engagement in the planning process, and I'm just wondering if you'd agree with me that there's a problem when you have to go to the Supreme Court to take on a project like this.
Peter, thank you for your question. I think if I was a politician, I'd probably refer to that as a wicked question, because I'm not sure there is an answer other than we need genuine engagement, not consultation. We need genuine engagement with community members about the shape and the feel of our built environments and how that changes over time. Clearly, there need to be opportunities to embrace sustainable urbanisation, and in some locations that will be relatively straightforward. So brownfield sites or degraded urban locations will be in need and call out for urban revitalisation. A number of the activity centres, however, will be in locations where communities are very cautious about what that change is about to do to a location for which they have a very deep and strong connection. So I haven't got the answer to the planning system, but what I do genuinely know is that how we engage with communities is something that's really important. Certainly some of the work that we're doing in looking at ways technologies can be applied facilitates that. So being able to visualise those developments before they're constructed so that those conversations can occur, scenarios can be evaluated, and a more genuine and deeper understanding of what the changes to the built environment and communities look like before that actually happens, I think will hopefully foster more inclusive and diverse engagement. But I feel your pain. I understand that the system is a complex one.
So the final question.
Robert Fisher, thank you, Mark, for your address. The suburban rail loop is a rather controversial transport development. I'm curious to know if you're aware of any social or economic justification for this massive investment.
Thanks for the question, Robert. I can answer that. In that, I guess I included the suburban rail slide in the presentation because it really reinforces the principle of looking at sustainability in three core concepts: a mix of uses, sensible density, and then access to services, including public transport. So the principle is a sound one. What it means in terms of implementation of such a major infrastructure and capital project, I'll leave to others.
Thank you very much, Mark, for your presentation and also for the great questions we had. And obviously, it's a really big issue, and it's great to have people like yourselves and your team that are working on these issues around the challenges that our cities face, and certainly to experience and learn about the visuals and the digital twins and what's going on with all the technology. But also, I should say that, and having chats with Mark a couple of times over the last 6-7 months in the work he's doing, they're also working on overseas locations, aren't you, and as well. So they're getting an international reputation, which is really very good. So thank you very much. It's been great to have you here and do this presentation. We've got a little gift to give you. It's a pair of socks. They are resilient, long-lasting, and sustainable. So, and they come from the courtesy of Philip Endersby, who's a member of our club with his firm Wilderness Wear. So thank you very much, Mark. That's great. Okay. Right. Well, we're bringing the meeting to a close, and so thank you to all visitors and guests and members for attending. Thanks also to our MC Rosemary Nixon, and for Philip Cornish's reflection and our lunch setup, and reception teams for all their efforts. And please, if you can lend a hand packing up after the meeting, that would be grateful. And as mentioned by both the Honorary Secretary John and Trevor, a reminder, next week we meet on level 1 for our annual Thomas Baker Oration with special guest speaker Dr. Megan Clark AC, Chancellor of Monash University, former Director of the CSIRO, inaugural Head of the Australian Space Agency. And it's a terrific opportunity to hear from a leader in the scientific community.